Commander Teo sat in the dark control room of the orbital station, watching the stars through the massive window above his head. He had been working here for 17 years without anything important happening. Every day was the same. He checked the communication systems in the morning, monitored the signals from deep space during the day, and sent reports to Earth Command in the evening. Most of the time, he just waited. He waited for something that might never come. The station was quiet at 0347 hours. Most of the staff were sleeping in their quarters. Only Teo and a few others remained awake, watching the systems that kept the station alive and connected to the galaxy. Teo drank cold coffee from a cup that had been sitting on his desk for 3 hours. He was thinking about going to sleep soon when everything changed. The first alarm was soft. Just a small beeping sound from one of the communication panels. Teo did not think it was important at first. The systems beeped sometimes for no real reason. But then another alarm started, and then another. Within seconds, his entire console came alive with lights and sounds. Every screen was flashing with information. Teo jumped from his chair and moved closer to the displays. The signal was coming from deep in space, from a direction that should have been empty. It was an SOS signal, which meant someone was in serious trouble and needed help very badly. Teo's heart began to beat faster. In all his 17 years on this station, he had never received an SOS signal that was real. He had trained for this moment many times, but training was very different from the real thing. He called out to the other officers in the room. "Get Dr. Jiwon down here right now. We have an incoming signal." His voice was louder than normal because he was excited and nervous at the same time. A junior officer ran to wake up the station's best communication specialist. Within 5 minutes, Dr. Jiwon arrived in the control room. She was still putting on her work jacket as she walked toward Teo's console. Her hair was messy from sleep, but her eyes were alert and sharp. She had the mind of someone who understood languages and signals like most people understood simple things. "What do we have?" she asked, already looking at the screens. "That," Teo said, pointing at the signal. "It is coming from far beyond our normal communication range. The signal is old and weak, but it is definitely an SOS. The strange thing is that the code format is from Earth. Very old Earth. The kind of code that was used by our first space explorers more than 200 years ago." Dr. Jiwon leaned closer to the display and began to work with the equipment. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. She used special programs to clean up the signal, to remove all the noise that had built up during its long journey through space. The signal became clearer. The message became stronger. "My God," she whispered. "This is real. This is actually real." She started recording the message. The computer in her hands began to translate the old code into modern language. The words appeared slowly on the screen, one by one. When the full message was finally clear, both Teo and Jiwon just stood there in silence. They could not believe what they were reading. The message said, "This is Colony Haven. We are under attack. Unknown hostile forces have broken through our outer defenses. We cannot hold much longer. This message is a call to Earth. If anyone from Earth is listening, please hear us. We are your people. We have been here for so long. We are still human. We are still alive. We remember Earth. Please remember us. Please help us. This is our last hope." The message repeated over and over like a voice crying out into the darkness of space, hoping someone would hear it and care enough to answer. Teo and Dr. Jiwon looked at each other. They both understood what this message meant. Somewhere out there, in the direction of the star system, Kepler 442b, there was a human colony that had been lost to Earth's history for nearly 300 years. The people who lived there were not just any people. They were human. They were Earth's children, still fighting to survive on a distant world. "How long ago was this message sent?" Teo asked. Dr. Jiwon checked the signal analysis on her screen. Based on the degradation and the distance it traveled, I would say it was sent maybe 48 to 72 hours ago. If they are under attack right now, if the signal was current, then they need help immediately. We do not have much time. Teo moved to his main control station. He began to type a message that would be sent to Earth Command. This was the most important message he would ever send in his entire life. He knew that what he was about to do would change everything. When Earth learned about this lost colony, when the people on Earth understood that their ancestors had survived and thrived on another world, it would transform humanity's place in the galaxy forever. He wrote, "Alert level emergency. We have received a legitimate SOS signal from a confirmed human colony on Kepler 442b. The colony is under attack by unknown hostile forces. The signal is genuine. The colony is calling for Earth's protection, awaiting orders on how to respond. This is not a drill." He sent the message, and it began its journey toward Earth, traveling at the speed of light. Even at that incredible speed, it would take several hours to reach the planet. Tayo and Dr. Jiwon would have to wait. They would have to sit and hope that Earth Command would understand the importance of this signal. They would have to hope that someone on Earth would make the decision to send help. Dr. Jiwon continued to work with the signal. She tried to clean it up even more. She tried to add more details. She wanted to know everything about the colony. She wanted to understand who these people were and how they had survived so far from home for so long. But the signal was fading. The power on the other end must be running out. The colony must be running out of time. "We should try to send them a response," Dr. Jiwon said. "We should let them know that we heard them. We should tell them that Earth knows they are alive." Teo nodded. He did not think a response would help much, but it was important to try. It was important to let the people of Haven know that they were not forgotten. They were not abandoned. Earth had finally heard their voice across the centuries. He began to compose a message. He tried to use the old Earth code format that the colony had used to reach out. The words came slowly to him because he wanted them to mean something. He wanted them to carry hope and promise. Finally, he sent the message, "To the people of Haven, this is Earth. We hear you. We remember you. You are not alone. Help is coming. Hold on." He did not know if the message would reach them. He did not know if they would still be there when help arrived. But he had done what he could do. Now he could only wait and hope that Earth would respond the way Teo believed it should respond. The lost children of Earth were calling home, and the question was simple. Would Earth answer the call? The message from the orbital station reached Earth's main command center in exactly 3 hours and 42 minutes. It was received by Captain Min Jun, who was the head of all communication systems for Earth's military. He was in the middle of reviewing routine reports when the alarm sounded on his console. At first, he thought it was just another test. Earth Command ran many tests to make sure all systems were working properly. But when he read the message, his hands began to shake. He immediately walked to the office of President Min Jun, the leader of Earth's government. President Min Jun was a woman who had spent her entire life preparing for situations exactly like this one. She had studied history, diplomacy, and military strategy. She knew that every decision she made could affect the future of all human beings on Earth. But nothing had prepared her for this message. "You are telling me that we have a lost colony somewhere in space?" she asked. "A colony of humans who have been alive for 300 years on another planet?" "Yes, Madam President," Captain Min Jun said. He was trying to keep his voice calm and professional. "The signal is real. The code format is authentic. The location is Kepler 442b in the Kepler system. According to historical records, there was an attempt to establish a colony there between 250 and 300 years ago. The mission was lost, and Earth Command assumed everyone on that mission had died." President Min-jun stood up and walked to the window of her office. She looked out at the city below, at all the millions of people who lived their lives on Earth, never thinking about the stars or the people who might live among them. And they are under attack? Yes, Madam President. The colony is being attacked by an unknown hostile force. The message says they cannot hold their position much longer. They need help as soon as possible. The president turned back to face Captain Min-jun. Her face was calm and determined. How long would it take for our fleet to reach them? We have several options, Madam President. The fastest option would be to use the Pacific Fleet. Captain Hae-il commands that fleet, and he has 3 weeks of supplies on his ships. It would take approximately 3 weeks to reach Kepler 442b using our advanced fold space drives. President Min-jun returned to her desk and began to think. She had to make many decisions very quickly. She had to decide if Earth would send its military to help people they had not even known existed until a few hours ago. She had to decide if this colony was really human or if it was some kind of trick by hostile forces trying to lure Earth's military into a trap. She had to decide if humanity was ready to take an active role in galactic affairs, or if it was better to remain isolated and neutral as they had been for so long. Within 30 minutes, she had called together a special meeting of Earth's top military leaders. The room was full of experienced men and women who had spent their lives protecting Earth. They all looked serious and worried. President Min-jun explained the situation to them, and then she asked for their opinions. "It could be a trap," one general said. "We know very little about the galaxy. We know very little about the forces that live out there among the stars. This could be an attempt to draw our military away from Earth so that someone could attack us." "But it could also be real," another officer said. "It could be our people. It could be the descendants of the first explorers who tried to reach the stars. If we do not help them, if we ignore their call for help, then we are saying that we do not care about human life. We are saying that we value our safety more than we value our own people." The room became quiet. Everyone understood the meaning of this choice. If they sent the fleet and it was a trap, many soldiers would die and Earth would be in danger. But if they sent the fleet and it was real, they would save thousands of human lives. They would prove that humanity was a species that protected its own, no matter how far away they might be. Captain Hae-il received the order to prepare his fleet for departure within the hour. He was a military officer with 30 years of experience. He had fought in battles before. He had led ships and men through dangerous situations, but he had never been ordered to travel across the galaxy to save people he did not know. He had never been asked to make a decision that could affect the entire future of humanity's place in the galaxy. He gathered his best officers in the planning room of the Pacific Fleet's main ship, the carrier called Indomitable. The ship was huge, longer than a mountain is tall. It had weapons that could destroy entire cities. It had systems that could protect thousands of people from almost any kind of attack. But Hae-il was not sure if it would be enough. "This is not going to be a simple journey," he told his officers. "We are going to fly into unknown space. We are going to meet hostile forces that we know nothing about. We might not come back. Anyone who is not willing to accept this risk can leave now. There is no shame in that choice." No one left the room. Among the officers in that room was Lieutenant Gi-jun, a young woman who worked as a systems specialist on the Indomitable. She had grown up hearing stories about Earth's first space explorers. She had always wanted to be part of something important, something that mattered to the entire human species. Now she had been given that chance, and she was both excited and frightened at the same time. The fleet began to prepare for departure. Ships were filled with weapons, supplies, and medical equipment. Soldiers came aboard carrying everything they would need to fight, if they had to. Doctors and medical specialists prepared their facilities to help the wounded. Scientists and engineers checked every system twice to make sure nothing would break during the long journey through space. On Kepler 442b, far away from Earth, The situation was becoming desperate. The colony's leader, Commander Kyung-ho, knew that the SOS message had been sent. He did not know if Earth would hear it. He did not know if Earth would care. He did not know if anyone would come to help. But he knew that his people were running out of time. The creatures attacking the colony were unlike anything anyone had ever seen before. They were organized and intelligent. They used weapons and tactics that showed they were not simple animals. They seemed to know exactly where to attack the colony's defenses. They seemed to be trying to capture the colony rather than destroy it completely. Kyung-ho had sent analyst Jin-A to work with the communication equipment. Jin-A was a young woman who understood technology better than almost anyone in the colony. She had spent many hours hidden in the communication room trying to reach Earth. She had sent the SOS message using the oldest code she could find in the colony's records. It was a desperate act, a call for help that might never reach anyone. But now, as the colony's defenses began to fail, as the supplies of ammunition began to run low, Jin-A sat in the communication room and waited. She waited for a response. She waited to hear that Earth had heard their call. She waited to hear that help was coming. And then, finally, the response came. The message was short and simple, but it meant everything to the people of Haven. To the people of Haven, this is Earth. We hear you. We remember you. You are not alone. Help is coming. Hold on. Jin-A read the message and began to cry. She was not sure if help would actually come in time. She was not sure if the colony would survive. But now she knew that Earth remembered them. Earth had not forgotten them. After 300 years of isolation, they were not forgotten anymore. They were remembered, and they were cared for. The journey from Earth to Kepler 442b was not made in normal space. The ships of the Pacific Fleet used technology that allowed them to travel through fold space, a way of moving through the universe that was much faster than traveling through regular space. It was a journey that took 3 weeks, and during those 3 weeks, the soldiers and sailors on the fleet had time to think about what they were about to do. Captain Hai-Il spent most of his time on the bridge of the Indomitable, working with his officers to plan for every possible situation. They did not know what they would find when they arrived. They did not know how many hostile forces would be waiting for them. They did not know if the colony would still be alive when they got there. But they had to be ready for anything. Lieutenant Gi-jun worked in the ship's main control room, where she monitored all of the ship's systems. Her job was to make sure that everything worked properly during the long journey. She checked the engines, the weapon systems, the shield generators, and the communication equipment. Every system was important. Every system had to work perfectly because if even one system failed, the entire fleet could be in danger. During the quiet moments between work shifts, Gi-jun would go to the observation deck and look out at the stars. She would think about the people on Haven. She would try to imagine what their lives must be like, living so far from home for so many generations. She would think about how long they must have waited and hoped that someone from Earth would come to help them. And now, after 300 years of waiting, someone was finally coming. The crew of the Indomitable was a mix of soldiers, sailors, scientists, and medical personnel. There were doctors who specialized in treating wounds from weapons. There were engineers who could repair almost anything. There were security officers who could plan and execute military operations. There were communication specialists who could talk to people using many different languages and codes. Every person on the ship had a role to play, and every person understood how important their role was. Captain Hai-Il called a meeting of all the officers when they were halfway through the journey. He wanted to brief them on what they might expect when they arrived at Kepler 442b. He wanted to make sure that everyone understood the risks and the responsibilities that came with this mission. "We are going to a planet that we know very little about," he told them. "We are going to meet people who are human, but they have been living away from Earth for 300 years. That is a very long time. Their culture might be very different from ours. Their way of thinking might be very different from ours. We need to be respectful of that. We need to remember that these are our people, but they are also different from us. He paused and looked at each officer carefully. We are also going to meet an enemy that we know nothing about. We do not know how strong they are. We do not know what weapons they have. We do not know what their strategy is. We must be very careful and very prepared. We must assume that they are dangerous and powerful. We must assume that they will fight with everything they have. One of the senior officers, Commander Su Jin, raised her hand. Captain, what are our rules of engagement? When we arrive at Kepler 442b, how should we respond if we are attacked? Hail answered with a calm and steady voice. We will defend the colony. We will use any force that is necessary to protect the people on Haven. We will not start a war if we can avoid it, but we will not hesitate to fight if we have to. The mission is simple. Save the colony and bring them to safety if possible. As the fleet moved through fold space, back on Kepler 442b, the situation was becoming more and more dangerous. The creatures attacking the colony had changed their strategy. Instead of attacking with constant waves of soldiers, they were now using more careful and planned tactics. They were testing the colony's defenses, looking for weaknesses that they could exploit. Commander Kyung-ho was working almost without sleep. He had to make decisions about which defenses to strengthen, which areas to abandon, and where to pull his soldiers to make a final stand if the worst happened. He was a skilled military officer, but he was not trained for this kind of situation. He had been the commander of a peaceful colony for many years. Now he was fighting for the survival of his people. The colony's ammunition and supplies were running dangerously low. The soldiers who were defending Haven could not fight forever. They could not hold the colony indefinitely. The only thing that kept them fighting was the message that had come from Earth. They knew that help was coming. They knew that they were not forgotten. That knowledge was sometimes stronger than weapons. Analyst Jin A continued to work in the communication room, sending regular messages to Earth and listening for responses. She was one of the few people in the colony who had studied the old Earth history in detail. She knew about the first explorers. She knew about the ancient missions that had been sent into space. She understood that the people on Earth might not be ready to believe that Haven was real and that people had survived there. But every message she sent was answered. Every call for help was acknowledged. Earth was listening. Earth was coming. And Jin Ai made sure that every person in the colony knew this. She would go to the shelters where people were hiding, where people were afraid, and she would tell them, Earth remembers us. Earth is sending help. We are not alone. On the Indomitable, as the fleet prepared for the final jump through fold space, Lieutenant Gi Jun received a message from Earth. It was a recording of President Min Jun speaking directly to the soldiers of the Pacific Fleet. The president's voice was clear and strong. You are going to rescue people who are your brothers and sisters, even though you have never met them, she said. You are going to cross the galaxy to answer a call for help that was sent 300 years ago. This is what it means to be human. This is what it means to care about each other. You represent the best of what our species can be. I am proud of you. I believe in you. Go and bring our people home. The words of the president made the soldiers feel stronger and more determined. They were not just fighting for military victory. They were fighting for something bigger. They were fighting for the idea that humanity takes care of its own. They were fighting for the idea that no matter how far away someone is, no matter how long they have been gone, they are still part of the human family. Finally, after 3 weeks of traveling through fold space, the moment of arrival came. The fleet emerged from fold space near Kepler 442b, and the planet appeared before them on their screens. It was a beautiful planet, with blue oceans and green continents. But as they scanned the area, they could see the signs of war. There were fires burning on the surface. There were ships in orbit that did not belong to Earth or to Haven. There were energy weapons being fired across the sky. The battle for Kepler 442b had already begun, and now Earth's fleet was here to join it. Captain Hay-Il looked at the displays showing all the hostile forces around the planet. There were many more enemies than he had hoped for, but there was also no time for fear or doubt. There was only time for action. He gave his orders, and the Pacific Fleet moved toward the planet to save the people of Haven. The moment that the Pacific Fleet came out of fold space near Kepler 442b, their sensors were overwhelmed with information. Enemy ships were scattered across the orbit around the planet. On the surface, tens of thousands of enemy soldiers were fighting against the colony's defenses. The Kolvar Dominion, the alien force that was attacking Haven, had not expected to see Earth's military fleet appear. For a few seconds, they seemed confused and unsure of what to do. Captain Hay-Il used those few seconds to his advantage. He ordered the Indomitable to take position between the hostile fleet and the planet. He ordered the destroyers to move to strategic locations where they could defend against any attack. He ordered the other cruisers to begin scanning the enemy ships to learn everything they could about them. Within minutes, the confusion was over, and the enemy fleet began to move toward the Pacific Fleet with clear intention. "They are attacking!" one of the bridge officers called out. "Energy signatures detected from multiple ships." Hay-Il had fought in space battles before, but he had never seen weapons like the ones the Kolvar Dominion was using. The energy blasts were more powerful than Earth weapons. They traveled faster. They were more difficult to predict. But Earth had something that the Dominion did not have: soldiers and sailors who had trained to respond to the unexpected. "Raise shields to maximum," Hay-Il commanded. "Return fire on my mark." The Indomitable's shields came alive, creating an invisible wall of protection around the ship. When the first volley of enemy fire hit those shields, there was a bright flash of light. The ship shook with the impact, but it held. Then Earth's weapons fired in return. The Pacific Fleet had come to fight, and they were not going to back down. Below, on the surface of the planet, the people of Haven watched the sky light up with the energy signatures of space combat. They did not understand what was happening at first. The communication systems had been damaged by the fighting, and they could not contact the fleet. But then, one of the colony's scouts managed to get a visual confirmation. Massive ships had arrived in the sky, ships that were not from the Kolvar Dominion, ships that were using different kinds of weapons. Commander Kyung-ho received the report, and his heart filled with hope. "It has to be Earth," he said to the officers around him. "It has to be. Send out every signal we can. Tell them we are here. Tell them where our forces are." Analyst Jin A was immediately put to work trying to establish a communication link with the fleet above. Her fingers moved quickly over the old communication equipment, typing in codes and frequencies that had not been used in hundreds of years. Finally, a signal got through. A voice came through the speaker, speaking in modern Earth language, but with an accent that was clear and professional. "This is the carrier Indomitable from Earth's Pacific Fleet. We are responding to your distress call. We are here to help. Can you hear me?" The entire command center fell silent. For 300 years, the people of Haven had been alone. They had been forgotten by history. They had been cut off from the rest of humanity. And now, suddenly, Earth was here. Earth had heard their call. Earth was sending ships and soldiers to save them. Jin A's voice shook as she responded. "This is Colony Haven on Kepler 442b. We read you, Indomitable. We have been under attack for several days. Our defenses are failing. We are very glad to hear from Earth. Very glad to hear that we have not been forgotten." "You have not been forgotten," the voice from the Indomitable replied. "Earth remembers you. We are going to help you. We are going to send soldiers down to your position. We need you to tell us where you are and what kind of weapons you need. Help is coming." Above the planet, the space battle was growing more intense. The Kolvar fleet had more ships than the Pacific Fleet, but Earth's ships were better designed and Earth's soldiers were better trained. For every Dominion ship that was hit and damaged, Earth's fleet took damage as well. The battle was not going to be easy, and it was not going to be quick. Captain Hay-Il made a decision that was both brave and dangerous. He ordered a group of dropships to prepare for immediate deployment to the surface. These dropships would carry soldiers and equipment down through the atmosphere and into the heart of the fighting. The soldiers on those ships would have to fight their way to the colony and help hold back the enemy forces. Lieutenant Gi Jun was one of the people selected for this mission. She was not a combat soldier. She was a systems specialist. But the military needed people who could help set up communication equipment, repair damaged systems, and provide technical support. She was assigned to go with the first wave of dropships. As she prepared for the mission, Gi-jun checked her equipment carefully. She had a personal weapon for defense, but her main tools were technical devices designed to help establish and maintain communications. She also had medical supplies, because in a battle, soldiers got wounded, and the only medical help available might be from people like her. The soldiers around her were experienced combat veterans. They had weapons that were specially designed for fighting alien forces. They had armor that could protect them from most kinds of attacks. They had been trained for situations exactly like this one, but they were not yet sure what to expect. No one on Earth had ever fought against the Kolvar Dominion before. No one knew exactly how dangerous these aliens really were. The dropships were loaded and ready. The soldiers sat in rows, checking their weapons one final time. Some of them were quiet and thoughtful. Some of them talked to their friends, making jokes and trying to stay calm. All of them were focused on the mission ahead. The commander of the dropship mission was Captain Su Jin. She had been selected because she was one of Earth's best military officers. She had fought in conflicts on Earth and in space. She understood tactics and strategy. She understood how to keep soldiers alive in dangerous situations. As the dropships began to move toward the planet's surface, Su Jin walked through the ship, speaking to each soldier. "We are going down to help our people," she told them. "These are people who have been waiting 300 years for someone to remember them. These are people who have been fighting alone to survive on a hostile world. Our job is simple. We are going to help them fight. We are going to help them survive. And we are going to make sure that when this battle is over, we bring as many people home as we possibly can." The dropships entered the atmosphere of Kepler 442b and began the descent toward the surface. The heat from friction against the air created a bright glow around each ship. From the ground, it looked like meteors falling from the sky. But these were not meteors. These were ships carrying the soldiers of Earth, coming to answer a 300-year-old call for help. The Kolvar forces on the surface saw the dropships coming, and they began to fire at them. Laser beams and energy weapons tried to bring down the ships before they could land. But Earth's dropships had been built to survive this kind of attack. They had shields and defensive systems. They were designed to get soldiers safely to the ground even in the most dangerous conditions. The first dropship landed near the colony's outer perimeter. The side of the ship opened like a mouth, and soldiers poured out, running toward the colony's defensive positions. More dropships landed behind it, and more soldiers emerged. The Kolvar forces were surprised by the sudden arrival of new defenders. They had thought that they were only fighting the colony's militia. They had not expected to fight professional soldiers from a military that had access to technology they did not understand. Captain Su Jin was the first one off her dropship. She ran toward the nearest defensive position and found Commander Kyung-ho directing the colony's forces. When Kyung-ho saw Su Jin in her military uniform, when he understood that this woman was a commander from Earth's military, he felt something inside him break. For the first time in days, he felt like the colony was not alone. For the first time, he felt like they might actually have a chance to survive. "Welcome to Haven," Kyung-ho said, extending his hand in greeting. Su Jin took his hand firmly. "Thank you. Now let's make sure this colony survives what is coming next." The battle for Haven lasted for 6 long hours. During those 6 hours, the soldiers of Earth and the people of the colony fought together against the Kolvar Dominion. The Dominion had expected to capture the colony easily. They had thought that they would face only militia soldiers with limited training and supplies. They had not expected to face professional military forces with advanced technology and the will to fight to the death to protect the colony. Captain Su-jin worked with Commander Kyung-ho to organize the defense. Together, they combined Earth military tactics with knowledge that Kyung-ho had about the colony's terrain and the attacking forces. They moved soldiers to strategic positions where they could defend against the enemy's attacks. They used the colony's defensive structures, which had been built over hundreds of years, to create barriers that were difficult for the Dominion forces to overcome. Lieutenant Gi-jun worked in the colony's communication center, working alongside analyst Jin-ai. Together, they managed the flow of information between the defending forces. They received reports from soldiers in the field. They passed orders from the commanders to the troops. They maintained the connection with the Indomitable in orbit above. Communication was one of the most important things in any battle, and Gi-jun and Jin-ai made sure that the communication never failed. The soldiers from Earth fought with a determination that surprised even the experienced officers. They were fighting for people they had never met. They were fighting for a colony that had been lost to Earth's history for 300 years. They were fighting to prove that humans would cross the galaxy to help other humans in danger. This was not just a military battle. This was a statement about what humanity believed and valued. The Kolvar forces had better numbers. They had more soldiers on the ground. But Earth's soldiers had something that the Dominion did not have. They had trained together for years. They understood each other's tactics and strategies. They knew how to work as a single organism, each soldier acting as part of something larger than themselves. When the Dominion attacked, Earth's soldiers responded with precise movements and coordinated strikes that turned the tide of battle again and again. By the 3rd hour of the battle, it was clear that the Dominion was losing ground. Their forces were being pushed back from the colony's defensive perimeter. Their soldiers were suffering heavy casualties. The attack that had seemed so promising, so certain to succeed, was now failing. But the Dominion did not give up. Military leaders on the Dominion ships began to understand that this invasion was not going to be a simple victory. They sent more soldiers to the planet's surface. They sent more support from their ships in orbit. They were determined to defeat this unexpected enemy, even if it meant using more resources and losing more soldiers. Captain Hae-il, watching the battle from the Indomitable, understood what was happening. The Dominion was going to escalate the conflict. They were going to send more forces. If Earth did not respond, the colony would be overwhelmed. He made a decision. "Send a message to the Dominion Fleet Commander," Hae-il ordered. "Tell them that this colony is under the protection of Earth. Tell them that if they do not withdraw their forces immediately, we will have no choice but to destroy them." The message was sent through all communication channels that Earth had available. It was sent in the standard galactic language. It was clear and unmistakable. Earth was making a statement to everyone in this sector of space. This colony belonged to Earth. These people were Earth's people, and Earth would fight to protect them. In the command centers of the Kolvar Dominion fleet, the military commanders received this message. They knew about Earth. They knew that Earth was a distant planet with limited exposure to galactic affairs. They assumed that Earth would be easy to defeat or intimidate. But something about the message, something about the confidence and the clarity of it, made them pause. The Dominion commander was a being named Vex Kola. He had commanded military forces for many years. He had conquered other colonies. He had defeated other civilizations, but he had never encountered a species like humans before. The way humans had responded to a distress call from a colony that had been lost for 300 years was not logical by Dominion standards. The way humans had sacrificed so much to help people they did not know was something that Vexcola did not fully understand. Vexcola accessed his databases and began to study Earth. He read reports from other Dominion officers who had encountered humans. He read about Earth's military capabilities. He read about humanity's history. What he found was troubling and confusing. Humans were willing to die for ideas. Humans were willing to sacrifice their own lives for the lives of others. Humans did not think the way that the Dominion thought. Humans did not value things the way that the Dominion valued them. Below on the surface, the battle was reaching a critical moment. The soldiers of Earth had pushed the Dominion forces back to the edge of the colony. The Dominion soldiers were still fighting hard, but they were losing ground. If the Earth forces could hold their position for just a little bit longer, the Dominion might decide that the cost of victory was too high. The Dominion might decide to withdraw. Commander Kyung-ho stood next to Captain Soo-jin and looked out at the battlefield. He saw soldiers from Earth and soldiers from Haven fighting together. He saw the defensive positions holding. He saw the Dominion forces struggling to advance. He saw something that 300 years of isolation had made him forget. Human strength came not from weapons or military power, but from the willingness to stand together and fight for what was right. "Your people fight well," Kyung-ho said to Soo-jin. "Your people fight well, too," Soo-jin replied. "You have been fighting for much longer than we have. You have been holding this position for days without any help. That takes a different kind of courage. That takes the kind of courage that comes from defending your home." The message from the Indomitable had an effect on the Dominion forces. More and more Dominion soldiers began to withdraw from the battle. They stopped advancing. They began to pull back. The commanders on the Dominion ships were reconsidering their strategy. Finally, after 6 hours of intense fighting, the Dominion forces began a full retreat. They gathered their soldiers. They called back their ships. They withdrew from the colony. The order had come from Vexcola himself. Leave the planet. Leave the colony. The cost of capturing this small human settlement was too high. The advantage of taking this planet was not worth the losses that the Dominion would suffer. As the Dominion forces retreated from the planet's surface and from the orbit around it, the soldiers of Earth and the people of Haven stood together in the colony's main square. They had won. They had survived. The colony of Haven was safe. Lieutenant Gi-jun came out of the communications center and walked into the square. She saw soldiers embracing each other. She saw people celebrating and crying at the same time. She saw analyst Jin-ae standing with her people, speaking about how Earth had come and saved them. Gi-jun approached Jin-ae, and the two women looked at each other. They had never met before today. They came from different worlds. They came from different times. But they were both human. They were both part of the same species that had sent ships across the galaxy to answer a call for help. "Thank you for coming," Jin-ae said. "We have been waiting so long." "We heard you call," Gi-jun replied. "How could we not come? You are our people. You are our family. We could never abandon you no matter how far away you were." In the communications center, analyst Jin-ae began to send a message back to Earth. The message was simple and direct. To the people of Earth, thank you. The colony of Haven is safe. We are alive. We are grateful. We remember Earth, and now Earth has remembered us. The message would take hours to reach Earth, but it would arrive. It would tell the entire planet that the mission had been successful. It would tell humanity that they had done the right thing in sending their fleet across the galaxy. It would tell Earth that their children on Haven were still alive, still human, still waiting to be part of the larger human family again.